Ladies and gentlemen, let me remind you of something most people forget. The world does not pay for what's common. It pays for what's rare, what's excellent, what's valuable. If you want to rise above average, you must stop trying to be available to everyone at all times. When you are constantly available, you're silently declaring to the world, my time, my gift, my energy, none of it costs much. But when you choose to become valuable, suddenly your presence commands respect, your words carry weight, and your actions produce results that people cannot ignore. Scarcity creates value, and this truth applies to everything in life, from the material world to the way we carry ourselves. If you think about the things that are most desired, most respected, and most highly paid for, they are rarely the things that can be found in abundance. The water that flows from the tap is essential, but it's cheap because it's everywhere. The air we breathe is vital, but it costs nothing because it's unlimited. Now compare that to a diamond, a rare gemstone tucked away in the earth, requiring effort, precision, and mastery to extract, polish, and present. People will pay fortunes for it, not because they need it to live, but because its scarcity creates value in the eyes of the world. The same law governs how people perceive your time, your presence, your energy, and your skill. If you make yourself available to everyone at every moment, you become like air, always there, always accessible, but unconsciously dismissed as ordinary. When you begin to recognize the principle of scarcity, you start to understand why being valuable is not the same thing as being available. Too many people confuse the two. They think that by being constantly present, constantly answering every call, constantly saying yes to every demand, they are showing their worth. In reality, they are depleting it. The more people have access to you without boundaries, the less they value what you bring. Imagine a world where diamonds were on every street corner, spilling from buckets like gravel. Would anyone value them? Would anyone guard them? Would anyone pay a price to have them? Of course not. That's what happens to people who try to make themselves too common in the name of acceptance, approval, or attention. Scarcity creates curiosity. When people can't reach you every second, they begin to wonder what you're doing. They begin to respect your time, and they begin to measure carefully the moments they have with you. Your presence starts to carry weight. When you step into the room, people notice because it's not an everyday occurrence. Your voice becomes something people lean into, not because you're the loudest, because you are not always speaking. Even silence, when chosen carefully, has value. A word spoken after moments of intentional quiet can carry more force than 1,000 words spoken without pause. Scarcity also drives intentionality. Think about the most powerful leaders, thinkers, and builders of wealth and influence. Do they spend their time running from one small demand to another? Do they answer every phone call, every text, every knock at the door? No, they protect their time with intentionality because they understand that the more common they become, the less impact they have. They don't confuse being busy with being effective. They operate with clarity, and that clarity comes from recognizing that not everyone is entitled to unlimited access. That recognition, that discipline builds the perception and the reality of value. Scarcity forces you to raise your standard. When you realize you cannot afford to give your energy to everything and everyone, you begin to filter. You begin to ask, what really deserves my attention? What relationships should I nurture? What projects align with my purpose? What opportunities actually move me forward? When you have boundaries, your yes gains power. Your yes means something because it is selective. Without scarcity, every yes is cheap. But when your yes is rare, it has weight and people learn to treasure it. The danger of unlimited availability is that it trains others to treat you like a commodity. Commodities are interchangeable. They can be bought and sold, used up and replaced. No one treasures a commodity. But value, real value, is not interchangeable. It is unique. When you embrace scarcity, you shift from being treated like a commodity to being treated like a treasure. That shift is not arrogance. It is wisdom. It is stewardship of your time, your talent, and your calling. Scarcity requires courage. It means you will have to say no more often than you say yes. It means some people will be disappointed when you don't answer right away, when you don't show up to every event, when you don't allow constant access. But the temporary discomfort of those no's will build long-term respect. People may resist boundaries at first, but over time, they come to respect the person who values themselves enough to guard their time. They come to realize that access to you is a privilege, not a right, and privileges are always treated with greater care than entitlements. Scarcity creates anticipation. If someone can call on you at any hour and know you'll show up, they stop appreciating you. But if your presence is rare, it becomes something they look forward to, something they don't take for granted. Just like a seasonal fruit that only grows once a year, people savor the taste because they know it will not always be there. When you understand this principle, you stop chasing popularity and you start cultivating presence. Presence that is respected, presence that is valued, presence that cannot be ignored because it is not available everywhere. Time is the most powerful signal of worth because it is the one resource that no one can replenish. Money can be lost and earned again. Energy can be drained and renewed. Relationships can fracture and be rebuilt. But time is the only currency that once spent can never return. Every choice you make with your time communicates how much you value yourself and how much others should value you. If you are constantly available, instantly responding to every call, every message, every demand, you are broadcasting a silent message: my time is not valuable. People pick up on that signal faster than you think. They begin to assume that if you always have time for everything, your time must not be worth much. When you treat your time casually, others will too. If you arrive late, if you overcommit, if you allow interruptions to control your schedule, people will sense that your hours are not guarded, and they will adjust their respect accordingly. The world measures what you measure. If you protect your time, if you assign it value, if you allocate it with discernment, then people learn to approach you with greater intentionality. They will schedule, they will prepare, they will respect the boundaries you have drawn because they see that your time is not something to be wasted. Time signals worth because it reveals priorities. If you spend your time on distractions, meaningless conversations, or endless scrolling, you are silently announcing that your life is not directed by purpose. On the other hand, when you invest your time in learning, building, creating, developing, and serving with excellence, people quickly realize you are not someone who can be pulled into every trivial matter. You are governed by vision. You are guided by clarity. You are living with an assignment that requires careful stewardship of your hours. That very discipline causes others to hold you in higher esteem because people naturally respect what is disciplined and purposeful. Think of the difference between a billionaire and someone working paycheck to paycheck. The billionaire's time is leveraged, protected, guarded by layers of systems and people because they understand that every hour of theirs carries massive weight. It is not arrogance, it is awareness. Contrast that with someone who allows anyone to pull them into unproductive conversations, favors, or gossip. The signal is clear. One person treats their time like treasure, the other treats it like loose change. People respond accordingly. Your time allocation tells others what you believe about yourself. If you give your time freely to those who disrespect you, those who drain you, those who never invest back into you, you are communicating that you don't see yourself as worthy of better treatment. But when you carefully choose where your time goes, when you stop allowing toxic relationships and pointless distractions to occupy your hours, you are sending a message: I value myself, and therefore you must value me too. Time becomes the silent negotiator of your worth. Even the smallest interactions reveal this principle. When you pause before answering a question, when you take a day to respond to a request, when you deliberately structure your meetings or conversations, you are elevating your time in the eyes of others. They may not articulate it, but they feel it. They recognize that you are not desperate, you are not running from urgency to urgency, but that you live in a rhythm of control and intention. That rhythm creates respect, and respect creates influence. The temptation to be always available comes from fear of missing out, fear of disappointing others, fear of losing opportunities. But the truth is that opportunities are drawn to those who demonstrate high value. When people see that your time is not scattered, that your attention is not cheap, they conclude that being in your space must mean something. They prepare better, they deliver better, they rise to the level of your standards. Your worth becomes reflected in the quality of the exchanges you allow. Time is also the great equalizer. Everyone is given 24 hours a day, but what you do with those hours separates the respected from the ignored. The majority spend their time in reaction, responding to everyone else's demands. A small percentage live in intention, shaping their time according to what matters most. Those few set the standard for how others treat them. Their calendars do not run their lives, their purpose does. And purpose-driven time always signals higher worth than reaction-driven time. When you begin to recognize time as your most precious asset, you stop offering it casually. You begin to structure your day with discipline. You begin to eliminate distractions. You begin to weigh the return on every commitment. You start asking, will this investment of time bring fruit, or will it simply drain me? That question reshapes your decisions, and those decisions reshape the way people see you. The more you honor your time, the more others will honor it too. Focus over business is one of the greatest differentiators between those who produce results and those who simply stay in motion. Business gives the illusion of progress, but focus produces real progress. There are people who run from task to task, answering every call, attending every meeting, reacting to every email, and at the end of the day, they collapse with exhaustion, yet have very little to show for it. Their calendars are full, but their lives are empty of impact. Focused people, on the other hand, may have fewer activities, but each one is intentional, strategic, and aligned with a larger vision. They do not confuse motion with momentum. They understand that doing many things does not mean doing meaningful things. The trap of business is seductive because it makes you feel important. When your phone is buzzing, when people are asking for your time, when your schedule looks packed, it feels like you matter. But if you pause to evaluate, you may realize that most of those demands do not move you closer to your purpose. They are simply noise disguised as urgency. Business drains your energy because you are constantly dividing your attention. Focus multiplies your energy because it channels everything you have into what matters most. Focus is about clarity. You must know what is worthy of your time before you can protect it. People who live in business rarely stop long enough to ask the hard question, what is my highest calling? What are the few things that truly create impact? And what can I eliminate? They are so busy running that they never step back to examine where they are running to. Without clarity, business becomes a default mode. With clarity, focus becomes a deliberate choice. That choice transforms how you live, work, and interact with others. Business often comes from a desire to please people. Saying yes to everything feels safe because it avoids conflict and keeps everyone happy in the moment. But every yes without alignment is a no to your destiny. Every time you allow someone else's urgency to override your priorities, you trade focus for business. Focus requires the courage to disappoint some people so that you can fulfill what you are truly meant to do. You cannot lead a focused life if you are enslaved to the opinions of others. Focus is also about depth over breadth. Business spreads you thin across many areas, leaving you exhausted and ineffective. Focus allows you to go deep in a few areas, producing mastery and excellence. Think about a magnifying glass. When sunlight passes through it unfocused, it warms the surface. But when concentrated into a single point, that same sunlight ignites a fire. Your energy works the same way. Scattered across too many tasks, it produces warmth but no transformation. Concentrated with focus, it produces fire, breakthrough, and impact. Business is reactive, focus is proactive. Busy people wait to see what the day demands, then they spend their energy responding. Focused people decide in advance what their day will look like, and they protect it from being hijacked by every demand. That doesn't mean they ignore reality, but it means they lead their time instead of letting time lead them. When you live in focus, you feel a sense of control. When you live in business, you feel like a victim of everyone else's urgency. The culture often celebrates business. People boast about how many hours they worked, how many calls they made, how many tasks they completed. But output is not the same as outcome. True productivity is measured not by how much you did, but by how much of what you did actually mattered. A focused person who spends 3 hours on the right task will create more value than a busy person who spends 12 hours running in circles. The respect you earn in life is not based on how much activity you generate, but on the results you produce. Focus requires discipline because distractions are everywhere. Notifications, requests, interruptions, and opportunities all compete for your attention. Without discipline, you will always drift back into business. Discipline means setting boundaries, creating systems, and training yourself to prioritize what aligns with your purpose. It means turning off what doesn't matter so you can tune into what does. Every distraction you eliminate is an investment in your future. Every focused action you take is a deposit into the account of your destiny. Focus creates peace. Business creates stress. A focused life may still be full of responsibility, but it feels lighter because it is aligned. When you know why you are doing what you are doing, the weight becomes purposeful. When you are busy without focus, the weight becomes overwhelming. Focus simplifies, business complicates. Focus directs, business confuses. Focus elevates, business exhausts. Self-development first is the foundation of becoming truly valuable because you can never give to the world what you have not first cultivated within yourself. Too often people chase opportunities, relationships, and recognition without doing the work of building themselves. They want to be chosen, they want to be seen, they want to be rewarded, but they neglect the process of becoming the kind of person who naturally attracts those things. Value is not assigned by chance, it is developed by choice. The person you are becoming will always precede the results you desire. When you focus on self-development, you are making the decision to grow your capacity before demanding greater responsibility. Many people want to be promoted, but they have not prepared themselves to handle promotion. They want more income, but they have not developed the discipline to manage more money. They want influence, but they have not developed the character to sustain influence. Self-development closes the gap between where you are and what you want. Without it, even if you receive the opportunity, you will not be able to hold it. The weight of success will crush you if your foundation is too weak to sustain it. Self-development begins with awareness. You cannot grow what you do not recognize. You must be willing to face yourself honestly, to see your weaknesses without denial and your strengths without arrogance. Awareness allows you to identify the areas where you need to grow. It may be your mindset, your discipline, your communication, your knowledge, or your emotional intelligence. Once you identify the gaps, you can begin the process of intentional growth. Growth never happens accidentally. It is always the result of decisions, actions, and consistency. Investing in yourself is the most profitable investment you can ever make. Books, mentors, courses, training, time and reflection and prayer, practicing new skills, and exposing yourself to higher standards all add to your internal value. People often hesitate to spend money or time on self-development because they see it as an expense. But in reality, it is an investment that multiplies. The more you grow, the more opportunities are attracted to you. The more you develop, the less you have to chase because value pulls instead of pushes. Self-development also requires unlearning. It is not just about adding new information, but also about shedding limiting beliefs, habits, and patterns that no longer serve you. Many people are held back not by what they do not know, but by what they believe that is not true. They believe they are not capable, not worthy, not talented enough. They believe success is for others, not for them. Self-development is the process of breaking those lies and replacing them with truth. As you renew your mind, your actions begin to align with your potential instead of your limitations. Discipline is at the heart of self-development. Growth is not an emotional decision, it is a practical commitment. You cannot grow by inspiration alone. You grow by habits, by daily choices, by consistency when you do not feel like it. Self-development requires waking up earlier, studying longer, practicing harder, and sacrificing comfort for progress. Comfort never produces growth. Growth comes through pressure, repetition, and persistence. Just as muscles are built by resistance, character is built by discipline. Another aspect of self-development is environment. Who you surround yourself with either accelerates or sabotages your growth. If you are always in environments that require nothing from you, you will remain stagnant. But if you intentionally place yourself in environments that challenge you, that stretch you, that expose you to higher levels of excellence, you cannot help but grow. Self-development is not done in isolation. It is cultivated in the soil of influence. Choose your soil wisely because your growth will always match the environment you place yourself in. Self-development is not selfish. When you grow, you are not only improving your own life, but also increasing what you can give to others. You cannot pour from an empty cup. If you neglect yourself in the name of serving others, you eventually run dry. But when you prioritize your own development, you are able to serve more effectively, lead more powerfully, and inspire more deeply. The world benefits when you grow because you are able to bring greater value to every space you enter. The key to being valuable is not in trying to please everyone or make yourself endlessly available. The key is in becoming someone whose presence itself carries weight. That only comes through consistent, intentional self-development. The more you grow, the more you stand out. The more you invest in yourself, the more others want to invest in you. The more you build your inner world, the more your outer world shifts to reflect that growth. Selective access is one of the greatest demonstrations of wisdom because it shows that you understand not everyone is meant to walk closely with you. The more valuable you become, the more you must learn to protect your space, your time, and your energy. Allowing everyone unlimited access to you weakens your value because it sends the message that your presence costs nothing. People rarely treasure what they can have anytime, anywhere. What they treasure is what requires effort, respect, and intentionality to experience. Selective access is not about arrogance. It is about stewardship. You have been entrusted with gifts, talents, wisdom, and time, and how you manage them determines how far your influence and impact will reach. When you practice selective access, you are telling the world that your energy is precious and cannot be wasted on every distraction, every drama, or every demand. You are drawing boundaries that define who gets the best of you and who cannot afford to. Without boundaries, people will drain you without limit. They will take as much as you allow because people naturally consume what is made available. Boundaries teach others how to treat you. They communicate silently that your presence is not casual but costly. That cost may not always be money. Sometimes it is respect, honor, or preparation. Selective access does not mean isolation. It means choosing intentionally who gets close enough to influence you. Everyone has a voice, but not every voice deserves a place in your ear. Everyone has an opinion, but not every opinion deserves to shape your direction. When you allow too many people to speak into your life, confusion grows because you are hearing from sources that do not share your vision. By limiting access, you preserve clarity. You ensure that the voices around you align with your assignment instead of pulling you away from it. Another reason selective access matters is that intimacy magnifies influence. The closer someone is to you, the more weight their words carry. That is why you must be careful who you allow into your inner circle. If you give intimate access to people who doubt you, dishonor you, or drain you, their influence will weaken your resolve. But if you surround yourself with people who challenge you, believe in you, and call you higher, their influence will strengthen your growth. The wrong person close to you can do more damage than 100 critics at a distance. The right person close to you can propel you further than 100 fans from afar. Selective access also preserves your energy for what matters most. You only have a limited amount of emotional, mental, and physical strength each day. If you waste it on unproductive conversations, on toxic relationships, or on people who do not value it, you have nothing left for the work that actually moves your life forward. But when you are intentional with who has access, you conserve energy for your purpose. You are able to give your best where it counts instead of scattering your strength where it is wasted. There is also a financial principle tied to selective access. The more valuable a product or service becomes, the higher the barrier to access it. Exclusive clubs charge membership fees. Luxury brands price their items high. Elite mentors charge for their time, not because they are greedy, but because they understand that people respect what they invest in. Free access creates casualness. Paid access creates seriousness. Likewise, when you raise the standard for access to yourself, you filter out the people who are casual and attract those who are serious. Serious people bring value, respect, and opportunity. Casual people bring distraction, entitlement, and drain. Selective access requires the courage to say no. No to invitations that do not align with your vision. No to relationships that consistently take without giving. No to requests that pull you away from what truly matters. Every no you speak is protecting a greater yes. Every boundary you enforce is guarding your purpose. People may not always understand your boundaries, but they will respect them when they realize your results are the fruit of your discipline. This principle also extends to your environment. Not every place deserves your presence. The spaces you enter should match the person you are becoming, not the person you are leaving behind. Selective access means being intentional not only about who has access to you, but also about what environments you give access to your energy. The wrong environments can contaminate your mindset, while the right environments can elevate it. Choosing wisely where you spend your time is just as important as choosing wisely who you spend it with. Choose value, not popularity. Because the pursuit of popularity is a trap that keeps people busy chasing applause while neglecting the deeper work of becoming excellent. Popularity is based on perception, on how many people notice you, talk about you, or approve of you. Value is based on substance, on how much you contribute, how well you solve problems, and how deeply you transform the lives of others. Popularity fades with trends, but value endures across seasons. The mistake many make is trying to be liked by everyone instead of being respected by the right people. Chasing popularity will have you bending, shifting, and compromising to fit the expectations of the crowd, while pursuing value requires you to stand firm in excellence and integrity regardless of who claps or who criticizes. Popularity is cheap because it is built on access and visibility. Anyone can gather attention in the short term by doing what is loud, shocking, or entertaining, but that does not mean they have built true worth. Value is expensive because it is built through years of growth, mastery, and consistency. The crowd may celebrate a moment, but people pay for mastery. Those who focus on being valuable may not be the loudest in the room, but when they speak, their words move decisions, and when they act, their results create ripples that popularity alone could never achieve. Popularity often demands that you spread yourself thin. You try to please every person, show up everywhere, and never risk offending anyone. In the process, you dilute your message and your power. Value, on the other hand, requires concentration. You cannot be valuable to everyone in every way. You must decide who you are here to serve and what problems you are here to solve. Once you focus on that, you may lose popularity with some, but you will gain deep loyalty with the ones who matter. Those who recognize your value will move mountains to work with you because they know they cannot easily replace what you bring. Choosing value over popularity means being willing to be misunderstood. There will be seasons when the crowd does not recognize your worth because you are not catering to their entertainment. There will be times when people criticize your discipline, your focus, or your boundaries because they cannot access you as freely as they would like. But over time, results silence critics. The very people who dismissed you when you pursued value will later respect you when your fruit becomes undeniable. Popularity gives you applause today, but value gives you influence tomorrow. Value attracts opportunities that popularity never can. Being popular may get you attention, but being valuable gets you paid, promoted, and positioned. Doors open for those who bring solutions, not for those who only bring noise. If you want to build a lasting impact, you must train yourself to measure success not by the number of eyes watching you, but by the depth of the transformation you create. 10 lives changed deeply through your value are worth far more than 1,000 likes that vanish in a day. Choosing value also brings freedom. Popularity enslaves because it makes you dependent on constant approval. You begin to measure yourself by numbers, by comments, by reactions, and it becomes a cycle that never satisfies. Value frees you because it is not dependent on opinion. It is built into who you are and what you deliver. When you live by value, you no longer need the crowd to validate you. You carry validation from the results you produce, from the growth you embody, and from the difference you make. That inner confidence is far more powerful than external applause. Popularity can be stolen in an instant. One mistake, one rumor, or one shift in culture can cause the same people who praised you to turn on you. But value is resilient. If you have built yourself into a person of excellence, wisdom, and reliability, no rumor or trend can erase that. People may argue opinions, but they cannot argue results. Results are the fruit of value, and they will always outlast popularity. Value also multiplies over time. The more you invest in becoming valuable, the more people will seek you out, recommend you, and open doors for you. Popularity requires constant performance to stay in the spotlight, but value creates momentum that carries itself forward. Opportunities begin to find you instead of you chasing them. While others exhaust themselves trying to stay noticed, you quietly rise in influence because what you bring is rare, needed, and respected.